the Honourable David Cunliffe.
Well, thank you, Mr Chairman. Mr Chairman, may I begin my contribution by picking up where our Chief Whip has left off. As Chair of the Regulations Review Committee, I too would seek an explanation from the Minister about why the Government has introduced a part as sweeping as Clause 39. And let me read it again. The Governor-General may, by order in Council, which of course are dictated by the Cabinet, make regulations providing for any matter that is contemplated by this Act as necessary for giving its full effect or its full administration. So the regulation-making power is very, very broad. It allows, essentially, the Governor-General, on advice from the Cabinet, to make regulations. Now that means basically the Minister is ordering up regulations, as the Chair knows, on any matter that the Minister sees fit. I turn then to a partner provision under Clause 7, page 34 of Schedule 1 of the Bill, removal of board members. The Minister may at any time remove a member of the board from office by written notice and publishing in the Gazette. Once again, an almost unfettered power by the Minister to remove any member of the Independent Standards Board. How very interesting. Then I turn to the regulatory impact statement prepared by the Government, by the Treasury and MBIE. And what I was curious about as a non-member of the Select Committee which considered the bill was the fact that the Labor Party had supported the bill to Select Committee, but on the weight of submissions received by the Select Committee, we are changing our vote and now opposing the bill. This, for people listening, is quite unusual. Sometimes an opposition will oppose a bill to Select Committee, then be reassured on points that are of concern and vote for a bill thereafter. It's more unusual for us to vote against a bill on the weight of submissions, having got it to Select Committee in the first place. So what is it that's the core problem of this? Well, let's start with what is the problem that the legislative process is designed to solve, because this reform program has been underway since the current government canned the previous government's 2008 reforms in 2012. That's a 3-year ride to get to the point we are today. So the problem definition is, number one, that the current arrangements of an independent statutory board are too unwieldy and too expensive, and one reading between the lines might add the phrase too independent. A range of options were considered for different aspects of this, but the key conclusion is in para 30 on page 6 of the impact statement, which says one of the key issues identified was the sustainability, they mean the financial stability, of Standards New Zealand. MBIE, that is the Government Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment, reporting to Minister Joyce, considered the current funding model and consider it remains appropriate. Here's the punchline: where regulators and industry are able to exercise choices about the use of standards and their development. So the government's officials and the businesses that are being regulated are able to exercise choices about what standards are developed and how. That way they can cut out the ones they don't want and only get the ones they do want, and that'll be cheaper because the body will be doing less. The way to ensure that is to in-source Standards New Zealand executive and board within the Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment, reporting to the Minister, the same Minister who can write any regulation he or she wants and sack any board member he or she wants under this bill. It's in-sourced within a government ministry. Any pretense of independence upon which New Zealand's international reputation for effectiveness in this area was built has gone out the window. And not surprisingly, that is exactly what submitters have told the Select Committee. National has chosen to go for the MBIE embedded option for regulation of standards against the run of public comments supporting full operational independence. boil it down again, under guise of addressing issues of, Mr. Chairman, of financial sustainability, i.e., can we pay for the thing on its current budget, the government has snuck through a Trojan horse, which is to remove the statutory independence of the Chief Executive and the Board, to bring them under a minister within a government department where the minister can write any regulation he or she chooses and can sack any board member upon notice. And there is a line official within MBIE who has day-to-day operational responsibility for the development of standards. Well, that's got to be a backward step, Mr. Chairman, and that is exactly what the weight of submissions have said. And they go on and on and on, sir. The negative submissions criticising the government for this Trojan horse move and warning us that not only will it trash New Zealand's international reputation in the standards area, but it could lead to other countries, perhaps developing countries with less robust systems of governments, adopting the New Zealand model to their detriment. And that is very disheartening words to hear. Why would the minister, why would the government want to have more control, direct control over standards? Well, it's lovely to see the minister entering the House at this moment, and I hope that he will take a call and address himself to that matter. Here's what the New Zealand Building Industry Federation,
come to part two,
a private, said in direct relation, sir, to part two. It said standard setting should not be subject to direct political influence by the government of the day. Part two contains the schedule, sir, which contains the ministerial regulation making power and the firearm, sack 'em or back 'em power. A consumer representative on a wide variety of standards committees, Patricia Cuniff, no relation, said she was completely unconvinced that the MBIE embedded model is either viable or well functioning. And there were many more submissions in similar vein. Diane Bagley, a member of the Joint New Zealand-Australia Committee since 1995, one of the international leaders in this area, criticised it for its lack of independence and robustness. Mr. Chairman, here is a government which is making a name for the decline of standards, the decline of broadcasting standards, the decline of expenditure efficiency standards, the decline of swamp cowrie standards, the decline of standards all around the country, sir. Maybe there's no surprise that it would want to have a tamer, more compliant, more malleable, more directable, more sackable standards body than currently exists. Under the guise of financial stability, here is a Trojan horse by which this government, which is always going for the short-term, high-control solution, is ebbing away our independent institutions, ebbing away, corroding away our independent institutions. And this is another step along a road, sir, vested in part two of this bill, which is leading to ultimately more risk, more fragility, and down the track, greater costs, sir. Because if we get standards wrong, we increase our insurance premiums, we increase health and safety problems, we may have interoperability problems which become more pressing in an interconnected world. I see the Minister of Health opposite. The Minister well knows that New Zealand's 22 DHBs find it difficult to talk to each other online because they don't have and haven't had a common set of interoperability standards. That's a living, glowing example of the importance of standards. If we want to shift patient data from an operating theatre in Northland to their family GP in Southland, oftentimes, sir, it's very difficult to do it because the standards are not as robust as they should be. If we'd had more standards of mining regulation, we might not have had Pike River. And so, Mr. Chairman, there are many practical examples about why standards matter. The gist, sir, here is this in conclusion. I see you're leaning forward for your time button, sir. That is, it is a matter of regret that we are insourcing the standards independence within MBIE. That's a backward step.
I call Chris Bishop.